Good day everyone and welcome back to BFA501. In this video we are going to review some basic skills related to pivot table in Microsoft Excel. We used pivot table in the previous lab session and this video is created as a recap or review. For the purpose of this week lab activity, we already provided with a simple or a sample dataset. So this is the dataset that we are going to play with for this week. Students can download the dataset from the Milo. The very first step for us to do before starting to analyze any data is try to understand the context of the data. We won't be able to do any data analysis if we do not have any knowledge about the data which we are going to work on. The provided dataset, this one, for this lab activity is related to the sales data. The first column is retailer country, which refers to the country where each product been sold. So in this case, the retailer column, there is United States, and then there's supposed to be some other countries listed here, like Canada and many other countries. And then the second column is order method type. This one is an order method type, which refers to the way or method on how each product been sold. So in this case, a product can be purchased by the customer via fax or telephone or mail or web, email, salesperson visit, and etc. So we're gonna see a bit deeper while we are starting to do our lab activity. The third column is retailer type. In this case, this data field refers to from which kind of shop each product been sold. So this could be outdoor shops or department store or warehouse store or sport stores and etc. And the third, sorry, this is the third column, and the fourth, fifth, and the sixth, or the next three columns, are product line, product type, and product. These three data fields are basically referring to specific product and product classification. So for example, over here is the Firefly Light, and then Firefly Extreme, Everglow Single, and Everglow Butane. Okay, and then this specific this is referring these four data here that I've mentioned before is referring to a specific product. It's a very specific product, and then these four specific products are classified under lanterns product type. Okay, so this one is belong to the lanterns product type. So this is the specific product for lanterns, and then the lanterns itself, together with sleeping bag, tents, cooking gear, they will be classified, or they are classified all together and listed under the camping equipment. So basically the product line, okay, is basically the highest level of classification, and then under product lines there will be several product types, and under product types there will be several specific product itself. Okay, and then the next two columns are year and quarter, which referring to which year and in which quarter of the year each product been sold. So in this case, like 2012, or this one is more specific, like quarter 1 in 2012, and so on. And then the last three columns over here, revenue, quantity, and gross margins, as the name explains, are referring to the revenue, quantity, and gross margins been generated by each product. Okay, now let's to construct pivot table for this data set. So after we understand about the context of the data that we are working on, let's start to construct a pivot table for this data set. So before we create a pivot table, make sure that we select one cell within the data set so we can put our active cell anything or anywhere as long as within the data set. So basically we cannot put our active cell over here because this is outside the data set. We can put it here, here, or here. So let's say I want to put it over here, which is still within the data set. The pivot table menu can be found under the insert menu. So we need to go or navigate to the insert menu, and then there is a pivot table menu over here. Okay. And I will click this one, and I will OK. So this one is by default it will select it as new worksheet. It means that our pivot table will be created in a new worksheet. So I click OK here, and there we go. We have this one. Okay, and then in pivot table there are 4 main areas. So these are 4 main areas. So this is the list of all the columns from our data set, and then when we are playing with the pivot table, we will deal with 4 different areas here. The first one is filters, and then columns, rows, and values. And in order to make a meaningful pivot table, at least we need to specify the rows and the values. Okay. As the name suggested, the values are specify what kind of data that we are interested on, and then values is usually dealing with the numerical data. So because this is the sales table, and then most of the time when we are talking about sales table or sales data set, we are really interested to observe or to have a look on the revenue data. So in this case I will put the revenue as the values of interest. Okay, so when I drag it here, it will provide the sum of revenue. So it means that the total of revenue which is covered in this data set. Okay, and the revenue is supposed to be presented as a currency. So in this case I can do like a little bit of modification in terms of the numerical type. So I can click the tiny little arrow over here, and I can go to the value field setting. Okay, and then under the number format I can choose currency. Okay, let's choose the top one over here, and I click OK, and yes, so this is the proper format for currency. So the value itself, it's not that meaningful. It's gonna be more meaningful if we add or if you break this value into certain category. So the rows area can be used to break the chosen value, which is the revenue, the total revenue, and we will break it into certain category, and we are going to present it in row wise. So for example, for this purpose I want to break it. Okay, I want to break this one based on the country, retailer country, for example. Okay, I'm gonna put it here. There we go. So the row wise is breaking the sum of the revenue based on the country. So Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, and so on. Okay. Another things that we can do over here is we can do some kind of sorting. Okay, to do sorting here we just choose this part, and then we can do like a right click and then there will be sort. Okay, we choose sort, and then yeah, because this is revenue, and then most of the time we are quite interested on pointing out or finding out which country generated the highest revenue. So we will sort based on the largest to the smallest. There we go. So this one we can get the information about, okay, United States is the highest revenue among other countries, followed by Japan, China, and so on. Alright, and then if you want to break this revenue information into a more detail or a more specific data, for example, I want to break it based on product line, for example. So I can put this one into column. So I want to break it column wise. There we go. So in this case, our pivot table is displaying the total revenue for each country and for each product line. So for example, United States. So this cell is explaining or describing or presenting the total revenue of camping equipment, okay, of camping equipment product line being sold in the United States. And this cell, for example, is explaining about the total revenue for the mountaineering equipment product line which been sold in Singapore, and so on. Okay. So basically this one is quite handy, and then we can play around by putting some other more information to this column or to this row. So for example, I want to make it more detailed. So I also want to include the product type, and we'll break it the column into a more detailed manner. So I can just put this product type over here. Okay, so this one is the big column, which is the camping equipment, and then camping equipment itself as a product line consists of several different product types. For example, this one is like cooking gear, lanterns, packs, sleeping bag, and tents. And yeah, but if you don't want to be as this detailed, if you want to just get like a one level higher perspective, you can just remove this one and put it back here. So just click it and drag it back to this. So yeah, that's quite easy actually. Basically we just click and drag and drop for each of the column that we want to have a look into a little bit deeper. Okay, and then so this is basically rows, columns, and values. Value is basically talking about the value of interest that we want to observe more, and then rows and columns is talking about like how we're gonna break the value of interest into certain different categories that we want to present it as a row wise or a column wise. That's all. And then the next thing is filter. So basically filters is in the case where we want to filtering the data. So for example, I want to filtering, because in this case we don't know about like in which year is this data. So we want to be able to have a control in filtering based on the year. So I can just drag and drop the year column into filter. Okay, and then it will create this a new entry in our pivot table, which is year. So for example, by default it will show the all years data, but for example if I only want to focus on the 2013 data, so I can just choose year of 2013 and then I can click OK, and then it will update this data in our pivot table. So this data now is only focusing on the total revenue for 2013. And if I want to change to 2014, I can just choose 2014 and I click OK here. That's all. That's quite handy actually especially when we want to analyze our data sets or to gain some more understanding of the nature of the data. This one is really handy. And then the next things that we can add into our pivot table is the graph or the charts, and we can choose from here pivot chart. Okay, so basically same, make sure that we place our active cell inside the pivot table area, and then we can go to the analyze menu, and then under analyze menu we go forward to the pivot chart. Okay, we click our pivot chart, and then we can just choose what kind of charting that we gonna use to present or to describe our data set in a graphical manner. So for example, in this case, just want to use a clustered column, the simple one, and I can choose OK. Right, so yes, as easy as it is. So okay, sorry, maybe I can put it a little bit over here. Okay, so if I change the year into 2012, okay, so both the pivot table and also the graph, the chart that accompany this table will also be updated based on the certain filter criteria that we set over here. So basically this is really handy, especially to find out or to pointing out some interesting finding in the data. And yep, so basically this video is aiming as a recap from the previous lab sessions. So in this week, for this week lab activity, we will encourage students to play around with the provided dataset and try to create your own pivot table as you wish, and try to identify some interesting finding based on your discussion with your peer and your discussion with your teaching assistant in the class. And then be confident, and if you found that your finding is quite interesting or quite intriguing, feel free to raise your hand in the class or in the lab and try to present what you're finding to the rest of the class, and it will be interesting. And that's all, guys. This is the first part of the video for this week, and thank you for listening, and have a good day.